Welcome to the Possibility Action Network podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Middleton, aka Possibility Man. We're committed to bringing you guests who strive to better people's lives and serve as a force for good in the world. Our guest today is Joy Lott. He's widely considered a fresh and respected voice in spiritual communities. He draws upon his experiences, struggles, and conversations with thousands of people globally to inform his writing and coaching practice. In listening to Joy, you'll discover his humility, authenticity, and sincerity as he shares his understanding of life and our connection to the Supreme. People from around the world reach out to him seeking answers to questions about their lives and challenges. They trust Joy to help them overcome some of their limiting beliefs that hold them back, achieve better health, and experience greater success. Joy has written several books, including How to Be the Creator of Your Reality. Manifestation happens, and you're trying too hard. Joy Lott, welcome to the show today.
Thank you, Stephen. It's very nice to be here. I appreciate that very wonderful introduction.
Okay. Look, I'm excited about my conversation with you. But first, a reminder to our listeners and our viewers follow, like, and share this podcast wherever you find it. Your support matters. It helps us attract guests like a Joy Lot. And Joy, I hope my voice holds up. As I was introducing you, I have something going on in my throat here, and I felt myself cracking. Oh my gosh, I'm losing my voice. So I hope things hold out as we talk today. Look, I want to get to know you better as we dive into the kind of work and kind of shares that you offer the world. Sometimes a person's early life leaves clues. What was growing up like for you?
Well, I definitely had a fair number of struggles, although I didn't really know that at the time. So it was really only looking back that I recognized that I struggled quite a lot, and a lot of it. Um, what I can recognize very distinctly is that I had some behaviors that were indicating of some problems that I was experiencing. So I had, when I was about, I think, 8 years old, I was struggling with compulsive eating, and um, I didn't know, I had no idea what was going on. I just knew that I oftentimes could not stop eating. I would just eat and eat and eat and eat, and I would be profoundly uncomfortable, but I just kept on eating. And and then that led into later on. I had body issues, body issues. So I was very insecure in my appearance, and had a lot of mm, led to a lot of teasing, as you might imagine. And so I felt very uh, isolated. I didn't really feel like I had anybody who I could trust or connect to deeply. And so I just was trying to solve my problems on my own as just this little boy. Uh, and maybe fortunately that was before the internet. So I didn't have the ability to just, have access to YouTube and things like that. So I was seeking out information in the library and things like that. And that was a slow process and not particularly helpful. Not that finding things on the internet is necessarily very helpful, but
Yeah.
that was early on, and then I think that contributed to me being introspective, and so there were some positives there, but it was early on. It was largely negative. A lot of uh, just sort of rumination and negative negative self-talk and things like that.
Hmm.
So that yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned your body image. I was just curious. Were you overweight? Were you extremely thin? Or, what was going on?
I was overweight. That was part of it, but the bigger issue for me was was very sensitive about my chest. I felt like my chest was there was something wrong with my chest.
Mm.
Um, and I thought that, and I was humiliated anytime that I would take my shirt off in public, and
Uh-huh.
so there were many situations in which, like going swimming or playing basketball, things like that, where I, they became, to use a word that's popular these days, they were often traumatic experiences for me.
Mm.
And I associated that with being overweight. And so I thought that the solution to that problem was to lose weight. And so I did uh, go about losing weight. I just starved myself when
Mm.
I was about 13 years old. That didn't solve the problem, but
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. So it sounds like you began to seek answers early on to
yeah,
the kinds of challenges you faced and questions that you have.
yeah.
So when you did attend college, when you went to college, did you continue seeking answers, or had you resolved, some of those things from
I,
early on?
I hadn't resolved anything. College was I did. It's interesting that you know that I attended college. I did. It's true. I did attend college briefly for about a year and a half, and I dropped out because I I knew that I had clarity enough that I wasn't going to find the answers that I was looking for there. And
Mm.
I attended the University of Illinois in Champaign-Urbana, and I'm sure an excellent school for people who are interested in the things that the school offers, but I was not really interested in the things that the school was offering. And so after a year and a half, uh, I left.
But that says a lot about you, though. You picked and you were admitted to the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. That's no small feat for a kid coming out. To. You must have been a very precocious, very smart, very diligent young scholar in high school.
Sure, yeah. Although I don't think of the University of Illinois as a particularly academically competitive school, but I attended there because it was the school that I could afford
Mhm.
because it
What,
was in
what,
state.
yeah, what did you plan to study? Did you have a major in mind?
I didn't. Well, I did briefly select a major. For the first year I had no major, and then
Mm.
after a year and change, sort of wandering around, lost.
Mhm.
Um, I thought about it, and I selected an elementary education major because I have one thing that I've always been interested in is learning and
Mhm.
learning process and facilitating the learning process. So I did know that, and I had some, you know, I thought maybe I would could see myself being happy as an elementary school teacher, and I
Yeah.
wouldn't have been, but
Mhm.
I had thought maybe I would be. You know,
Yeah, but you're teaching, you are teaching for sure. Hey, look, so what got you on track to become a writer? If you consider yourself as a writer, but you've written quite a bit. What put you on that path to start writing?
oh well, so after I left college, I moved out to Los Angeles, and I fell in. This was in 1998. And so this was the tail end of the dot-com boom. And so anybody could, that's not entirely true, but it was not particularly difficult to get a job as a web developer at that time. And I got a job as a web developer, even though I really didn't know anything about web development. And so I fell into that and I learned on the job. And then, as luck would have it, if you believe in such things, I met up with a person who was instructor of in that field, who was teaching web development at a for a company called lynda.com, which has subsequently been acquired by LinkedIn. So it's a kind of a big name. And he took a liking to me and asked me to start co-teaching things with him. And then he had a book deal. This was all in web development, but it was a book deal in web development. And that was my first, he wanted me to take on that project with him as a co-author. So that was my first writing project, I think. Before that, I don't think I really can't think of. I in school, I really didn't. I didn't have to do that much. I didn't have to try that hard, so I kind of did the bare minimum. And so I don't really think. Oh no, that's not true. As a young child, actually, I there was a program in the school system called the Young Authors Program, and I submitted several years into that competition, and my manuscripts were selected as uh, out of that competition at a state level. So I guess it's true that at a very young age I did some of that,
Yeah.
but professionally I started writing in I think 1999
Mm.
in web development, which you know I took it as an opportunity. I still viewed that as an opportunity to connect with people, even though it was about technology. I looked at it as an opportunity to connect with people. I viewed it as the readers of this book are people who are wanting to improve their lives. They're viewing that learning this technology is going to help them to achieve their goals, and I viewed that as a sacred uh, opportunity to be able
Mm.
to reach with to people in that way. So I did always, viewed it in that way. I wanted to communicate with people in a way that had warmth to it, that would allow people to know that they could enjoy their lives and have meaning in their lives,
Mm.
and there could be a human connection there through the manuscript. So that was my
Mm.
first introduction, and then I wrote many books in technology, and then it was in 2013 that I first self-published, and that was after I had gone through a pretty radical life transformation because um, I had experienced so much anxiety and stress and so many problems during those intervening years up until about 2012 that I got to a point where I was non-functional, and so
Mm.
I had stopped all of the professional work that I had done. I was living in a little cabin without any running water or electricity in the woods in New Hampshire, and just trying to survive. I mean, I was really it was a desperate situation at that time for me. And then things turned around in 2012. And after that, I felt very guided and inspired to share the things that I had discovered of value with others. And that's when I started the self-publishing journey in 2013.
Mm.
So those are more like self-help style books.
Right. Well, we'll talk more about your writing if you have time. So you obviously began to look in the area that I'll call spirituality.
Yeah.
And perhaps you've already given us some clues, but what prompted you to begin to look into this area, spirituality?
Well, I had so growing up, I remember my maternal grandmother was interested in spirituality of a certain type, and so I remember she had books by Wayne Dyer and Deepak Chopra, and so I had familiarity with their existence. I hadn't read anything by those authors, but I had familiarity with that. And when I was in college, actually, I remember when I was really going through a rough time, and I was feeling purposeless. I just felt like my life was empty. I didn't have a direction. I didn't know where to turn. I didn't know what to do. And so I went and found, there were two things that I found at that time that I remember. One of them was a Wayne Dyer book. Um, and the other one was an Alan Watts tape.
Mm-hmm.
And those both were, kind of the early guidance. And then when I moved out to Los Angeles, I met a friend who was really into spirituality and expanded consciousness and things like that. And he lent me a cassette tape by this guy named uh, uh, Cohen. I can't remember his first name, but he's a qigong practitioner, and
Hmm.
the cassette tape was guided qigong meditations, and I listened to that, and I had such a profound experience with that I credit that with really being a pivotal moment. It really changed my life having that experience
Mm-hmm.
because it revealed to me that I was not at all who I had been taking myself to be. I had
Mm.
mistaken myself to be this person with all this story and all of the day-to-day things in the body and all of that. And through this experience, through this guided practice, what my experience was that I everything fell away, everything. And there was no body, there was no world, there were no thoughts, there were no feelings, there was no history, there was no story, there was nothing. And yet, undeniably, I was there. There was no time. There was nothing there except there was somehow this realization of being.
Mm.
And it was such a puzzling experience that I really I couldn't make sense of it. I mean, I could not have told you any of the things that I just told you now about it at that time. At that time, it was all I knew was something happened, but I have no idea what that was. But it really set me on a path of seeking very intensely, I would say.
Mhm. Wow. So did you come out of that experience with the idea that you are a spiritual teacher?
Oh no, 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 no. I mean, I was 19 years old. I, I, I thought, I'm not maybe even 18, and I thought, no, I was thinking about, how I was going to pay my bills, and how I was going to, whether I could make friends and whether my friends would like me, and I was just thinking about that kind of stuff, um, and all of my problems. But that experience was just like I said, it set me on the path of seeking. So I
Mhm.
was after that. It, it was anything that I could get my hands on. I
Yeah.
was I was doing that.
Well, you shared a very profound experience that I think many spiritual seekers would want to have.
Yeah.
So how did you make that happen, or did that just happen for you?
Oh, it definitely happened for me. I mean, I put myself in the position. I allowed that to happen in a sense,
Mm.
but my so I can't take credit for it. I mean,
Mm.
I didn't. Ken Cohen, that's his name. I didn't give Ken Cohen the knowledge and experience that allowed him to make the cassette tape in the first place, and I didn't have the ability to uh, arrange things that I would meet my friend who would have that cassette tape and that he would feel inspired to loan me the cassette tape. I didn't, and none of that. I didn't have that ability, but the only thing I can take credit for was that, if even, was that when my friend loaned it to me, I put the cassette tape in the stereo and
Mhm.
hit play, and I just closed my eyes and listened and followed along. And
Mhm.
that's about it.
Is there such a thing, Joy, as a person's true self? Is there a true self that we are, that we have?
Well, sure. I mean, yes and no. I mean, there's no there's no thing that you're going to find that's labeled true self. I don't suppose, but in I mean, in contrast with who many of us think of ourselves as being, which cannot be, uh, if you, so let's look at it this way. So if I might think of myself as my body, but what is this body? What exactly is it? Is it what part of this body is essential? Because I say I'm this body, but if I didn't have this ear, would I still exist? Yes. According to me, I would still exist. If I didn't have, if my nose was cut off, would I still exist? Yes, I would. And on and on. Which of the cells of the body are fundamentally required for me to exist? Uh, and where I'm going with this is that it doesn't seem like there's anything in the body that is actually me, because all parts of the body are transient. And so I don't seem to actually be the body. So I might identify with the body, but I don't actually seem to be the body. And
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead, Joy. Finish your thought.
well, and the same with all the other things that I might identify with. So I might
Yeah.
identify with the personality, but what is it about the personality that I can pin down and say, that's me, that's it? And I can't find it. So I would say none of those things that I normally might identify with could really be said to be who I really am. And yet, somewhat undeniably, I mean, I guess somebody could deny it, but to me, undeniably, there's a presence or an existence that underlies it all, that allows for all this to be happening, that allows even for the identification with those things which are transient. And so
Mhm.
I would say that, in my way of looking at it, that would be the true self.
Hmm. Yeah, so I mean, you're right. While you were speaking, I was just, thinking about all of the things can be taken away from the body. I know someone who is a double amputee, for example, but he's still, vibrant and strong. I went to a couple of funerals recently. The body ultimately stops working. Is that the end of it, or is there something else that goes on here? So let me probe a little deeper. So, is there such a thing then as one's true nature?
Well, yeah, that would be so. That would be what I was pointing to, is that the true nature is that which is not transient, that which is eternally here.
Mhm. Okay. So now, is it easy for a human being to discover his true nature?
Well, that's an interesting question. I suppose that there are many ways of looking at that. One way of looking at that would be, uh, so on the one hand, well, okay, so I guess the way that I see it right now is that I don't know about easy. I don't know about
Mhm.
easy. That's, I think, what you asked. Is it easy?
Well, maybe let's drop that word. Let's say, is it possible
Is
for
it
a
possible?
person?
Yeah.
for the
That's
ordinary person, not people like yourself.
oh, I'm very
Well, I'm
I,
teasing a
I,
little bit. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I would say I'm the only way that I'm really extraordinary is just in the is in the particulars of the way that I've suffered, and that's about it. Other than that, there's nothing I would say extraordinary. Um, because everybody has the capacity to, so to answer your question, I think everybody has the capacity to recognize themselves, um, because everybody is aware, or everybody has awareness, everybody has that capacity of awareness. And so there's certainly the ability to recognize and distinguish between what it is that comes and goes versus what it is that's always here. Um, but I think oftentimes there's maybe a lack of motivation to do so because there's still um, a perception, a belief that the answers are going to be found some other way. So I think most people perceive that they're experiencing some kind of problems in their lives, whatever, and they formulate that in various ways. So some people might think that the problem is that they don't have enough money, and some people might perceive that the problem is that, the problem is everybody else is stupid and wrong, or the problem might be the government, or the problem might be that they're suffering from some kind of illness or whatever. And so I think most people perceive some variations of problems in their lives that they want to solve, and um, and then if a person believes that they have the ability to really thoroughly, deeply solve the real problems that they're experiencing and find true and lasting satisfaction and happiness through some actions or strategies that they're using in their life,
Mhm.
then they don't really have a reason to look elsewhere or to consider anything else, right? So if a person thinks that they're going to solve all their problems and get complete satisfaction and happiness by making more and more money, then,
Mhm.
and as long as they feel empowered to keep making more money, then why would they look elsewhere? They'll just keep
Yeah.
working on making more money.
Yeah. So, are we as human beings built to seek? I mean, I'm just thinking about all of the religions, around you. You pick the religions. You don't have to pick anybody. You know what I mean? So, people are going to churches, synagogues, mosques. It's like people seem to be wired to seek solutions. But I'm wondering, are we seeking God to do it for us, or a discovery that we can find out ourselves? What do you think? Are we wired to seek, first of all? And are we wired to say, God is going to solve this problem for us? Hence, we pray, God, solve this problem.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if yeah, that's an interesting question. Of course, I don't really know about what most people, I have no idea about most people. I talk like that a lot of the time. I'll say most people, most people, but I'm kind of half joking because I have no idea about most people. But I imagine, I kind of suspect maybe most people are maybe not really seeking for, maybe they're not really seeking in the way that you're proposing. Um,
Mm,
I wonder. I mean, I don't know, but I think that many people who are religious maybe it's like it's a club. Um, and so there may be that. And it may be that many people, I think a lot of the time, what I've observed is for many people, it seems that they are brought closer to God, as it were, through the depth of suffering. And that's certainly not true of everybody, but oftentimes it seems like when there's a certain threshold that people can endure of suffering, and up until that point, they can maybe mostly remain unconscious and just think, tomorrow will be better. If I take the pill, I'll be better. If I
Yeah.
just, go, the next barbecue, I'll be better, whatever. It's like, win the Pats, win the Super Bowl, it will be better, whatever. And that once there's a certain threshold that's crossed, then I think that's when people realize they'll have that rude awakening, as it were, like, maybe it's not, maybe the way that I've been thinking about this is wrong.
Mm,
Um, maybe those things aren't really going to give me what I'm looking for. Maybe,
mm,
uh, and for some people it's illness, and for some people it's a death of a loved one, and for some people it's they hit some kind of depths of addiction or whatever it is that people encounter something that I think pushes them over that threshold, and then I think is when the real seeking begins.
mhm. Yeah, I want to talk about just ordinary living for a moment and ordinary people uh, doing this thing called life. And it just seems to me that, people are okay with the good things that happen in their life. It's like, whoa, wonderful, good stuff. But then when things happen that's adverse, adversity, or what some people may label bad things happen. So, what do you think people can do when so-called bad, let me ask you differently. Do you see life happening in that way? They're good things and they're bad things, or do you see them as kind of like twins?
Um, I, for myself, I tend to look at it. Well, let me take a step back and say, I think that um, maybe at that level, none of us will really know the truth of the matter,
Mm,
whether there are good things or bad things or any of it. Any of the big questions that people ask. It's possible. I don't know. Maybe it is possible to know the truth, but maybe it's not. Uh, but for sure, I think that it is possible to become aware of one's own strategies and thinking about things, and discover whether that's working well or not. And so for myself, I um, don't find that thinking in terms of good and bad gives me good results. I don't find that that's helpful for me. It does not, uh, because and what's helpful or not helpful, it depends on one's values. So
mhm,
because if you live in alignment with your values, you're going to experience a kind of satisfaction. Whereas if you're out of alignment with your own values, then you're not going to be so happy. And so I just look at it in terms of what strategies personally will give me the best results aligned with my values. And for me, looking at it in terms of good and bad does not work well, does not give me good results. So I find it more helpful to look at it in terms of what, uh, to look at situations as learning opportunities. So
yeah.
yeah, so if it's like, if I think that something is good, then
Mm,
I'm curious about that. Why do I think this is good? What am I hoping that this is going to give me? And so it's
mhm,
revealing to me maybe some kind of unhelpful attachment that I have. And conversely, if I think something is bad, it's also probably pointing out to me some unhelpful attachment that I have.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. In prepping for you and learning about you, well, I'm going to put it this way. And it's okay to laugh, but I think I had some type of opening.
Mhm.
And that is, it was something like a common sense approach to my existence in this life. That's, I can mystify it, I can make it all mysterious and guruize it, but it's like common sense. So I want to, if that makes any sense to you, common sense now, I want to apply this common sense, demystify existence to some of the things that happen in ordinary life. A person, for example, like me, could say, "Oh gosh, I made some stupid mistakes in my life."
Yeah.
One way of handling joy could be to self-flagellate for the remainder of your life, which would not be smart. But there's another way of looking at this, isn't it? Talk to us
Sure.
about another possible common sense way that a person may look at his or her past.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, there are probably infinite ways to look at it. I can only suggest some, or at least one alternative. So, again, I find it helpful personally to frame things in terms of learning,
Hmm.
and that may be because I value learning. Um, so I would look at it for myself. I just look at it as it's a learning opportunity. So, uh, and also to see what expectations do I have that are not being met, and then I can reevaluate whether those are expectations that I really want to keep. So I might have the expectation that I should know everything and I should be perfect at all times,
Hmm.
and I could just look and see whether that's actually helping me. Like, is that a useful expectation to have? For me, that would not be. And so then I can reframe it in terms of, well, given that I value growth and learning, and so therefore things are not going to be static in life. Things will be changing, and so it's unrealistic to expect that I should always be anything, right?
Yeah.
Like if I have the idea that I should always know everything and be perfect, then that doesn't leave an opportunity for growth and learning. So of course it makes sense that there have been times in the past when I didn't know something and then I was given these opportunities, which reflected back to me where I didn't know something or where I had some unhelpful expectation or belief that allowed me to learn from that so I could grow more into
Hmm.
alignment with my values. And the good news is that I've done that. And so now I don't need to hold on to those so-called past mistakes because they were really just learning opportunities. Yeah.
Yeah, I find that to be powerful because when I say uh, common sense, I'm not cheapening this teaching. And this reminds me of someone, a sage. I'm not going to call his name, but you'll know the phrase. But he said, at least reportedly said, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Common sense, it's not rocket science, right? So this seems to be pretty powerful to me. Um, why do you suppose, and both of us live in the United States, but I think worldwide, because I've talked to people from around the world, people face depression and kinds of, mental health issues from the very serious to the not so serious. What's going on? What's going on with us, with humanity at this stage that we're troubled by so many things? And secondly, how do you think we can get out of it using what I just said was a common sense approach to living one's life?
Well, um, it's an interesting question, and I don't know for sure why people experience depression. I mean, the thing about and you're talking about mental health issues. You cited
Sure.
depression as one example, but if we look, one thing I do know that is useful in regard to looking at things like this is that if we look at something like depression and we turn that into a thing. So now
Mhm.
it's a thing called depression. And then we say, okay, Bobby's suffering from depression, and Sally's suffering from depression, and Jimmy's suffering from depression. And look at all these people worldwide that are suffering from depression. Um, that approach does not seem to give very good results because, and in part, probably because I don't think there actually is a thing called depression.
Hmm.
I think much more likely what it is that Bobby and Sally and Jimmy and all the different people have strategies that they're using in their lives that are resulting in experiences that they don't like. And and those strategies that they're using may be very different. So, one person who's supposedly suffering from depression, their strategies might be like thinking, uh, they might be thinking to themselves and imagining every day that they're useless, they're purposeless, that life is empty and has no meaning. And so that strategy results in the experience that they're having. And then they say, I don't like this at all. But somebody else might be thinking in different ways. They might not be thinking it's all meaningless. They might actually be thinking it's all very meaningful, but they might be thinking, I just got put into the wrong place. I don't have the ability to make any of the positive changes given my circumstances. If only I
Mhm.
had been born into this other circumstance, then I would be able to do it. So it's different strategies that result in unwanted experiences. I think is probably what's going on. And
Yeah.
that's I think that's what's going on. I don't know for sure.
Yeah, but I think that's meaningful because I've heard you talk about this, differently. You said, let me get it right. Yeah, tell a different story. Is that, if you're, as I understood you now, if you're troubled by something, maybe you're troubled by this because you've been telling yourself how bad you are, I'm worthless. But maybe it's possible to learn to tell yourself different stories. Do you recall sharing some things about that? And can you tell us more?
Sure, yeah. I mean, so I mean, this is based on my own life experience. So I know that for myself, I told myself a lot of stories that were not working for me, and they resulted in experiences that I didn't like. And then, so for example, I felt that there was something wrong with my body. I thought that my body was unlovable, unacceptable, unattractive, shameful. And so then I just took that to be the truth. I really didn't know that that was just something I was telling myself. I thought that was just the truth. And not surprisingly, I got lots of confirmation from the world around me that because I was looking for it, that would help me to confirm that yes, in fact, that's true. And therefore, I was being encouraged to continue to think in the same way and act in the same way, and therefore get the same kinds of results. But over
Yeah.
time, I was, getting myself into this narrower and narrower world where I had fewer and fewer options. Because at first I thought, well, okay, given that it's true that there's something wrong with my body and it's shameful, now what options do I have available? And I thought, well, okay, not a lot of options, but I've got some. I could starve myself and maybe that's going to work. And once I
Yeah.
tried that and that didn't work, I said, okay, well, do I still have some other? Okay, yeah, I could work out and do a lot of exercise and try to
Mhm.
reshape my body. That might work. And then it's like, okay, that didn't work. Well, what other options do I have? Try those options. But eventually I had eliminated all the options that I thought were available. And then here I was, and still assuming that the original premise was true. But I said, I have no options. So you want a good recipe for depression, there you have it. And
Yeah, you have it.
so there, when I found myself in that situation where I was like, okay, I've got no options. This is really a desperate sort of situation. But then I blessedly realized that why should I assume that that was even true from the get-go? If
Mhm.
it's not true that there's something wrong with my body, if it's not true that my body is shameful, if it's not true that my body is somehow harmful and damaging to other people, but by its very existence, then gee, maybe I don't even have a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I found it really powerful. I don't recall exactly how one of your short videos, or how you explained it in one of your short videos, but it was like you were advising us, the viewers or listeners, to just tell the truth. For example, if I say to you, I want to become healthier, and you ask me, well, do you move your body, at least 3 or 4 times a week? And I answered no. It seemed to me that you were telling me, well, look, tell the truth about it. You really don't want to be healthier because you're not doing anything about it. So, I mean, is that a part of your teaching to ask people to just, take some responsibility and act in a way that's consistent with what they say that they want?
Well, I suppose that could be part of it, and another part of it is just to be clear about what you really want. So
Mm-hmm.
there are a lot of things that oftentimes people think they want, and they think they want those things
Mm-hmm.
but they don't actually want those things. They think they want
Right.
those things because they heard about it from Facebook, or they heard about it from their friends, or they heard about it from their neighbors, or whatever. Which was like the situation for me. It had I never. I don't think if I hadn't seen Arnold Schwarzenegger and Baywatch and all these other and whatever, I don't think it would have entered my mind that there was something wrong with my body,
Mm-hmm.
right? So what happened was that there was this sort of like, I don't know what you would call that. It's like a meme, it's this thing that's out there that is floating around in consciousness that's getting passed along unconsciously from person to person, from device to device, that is spreading these false desires. So that then a person might, like me, might think, gee, there's something wrong with my body. I need to fix my body. I have a desire to fix my body.
Yeah.
But it wasn't actually a true desire. And so somebody might think, I want to be healthier. Well, the thing about wanting to be healthier is, I mean, what does that even mean? How are you going to be healthier? You need to be clearer about what specifically you want. So
Mm.
right? You might say, well, uh, you maybe you want to sleep more soundly at night. Maybe you say you want to be able to run a mile and feel positive and energized afterward. You might say that what you want to be able to go swimming and enjoy the day with your family or whatever. You might have different specific things that you want. But to say you want to be healthier, that's one of those things that you kind of you can pick that up from out there, because you can easily get that idea that I should be healthier, because
Yeah.
plenty of people are going to say you should be healthier. But what does that
Yeah.
mean? It's not really meaningful.
Hmm. Yeah. I'm with you. We are approaching during the time where we need to sign off, but I do want to ask you about your writing.
Mhm.
One book in particular, if you can just give us a short response to it. I love the title, by the way. I love the title. It is You're Trying Too Hard. Do you recall that book? And can you
Sure.
tell us what what are you conveying to the reader in this
Mhm.
book?
Yeah. So it's been a while, because that was like 11 years ago, I think, that I wrote that book. But the essence of it was that, I mean, like I mentioned earlier, I was really seeking very intensely. And in retrospect, I don't really regret it per se, because as I suggested earlier, I do tend to frame things just as learning. And so I've learned an enormous amount through all of those experiences. But what I think I discovered through all of that ultimately was that I didn't really have a clear sense of what it was that I was actually seeking. And um, and so I was trying really hard at the seeking, but it would be sort of like you could if you said you'd lost something, you could search really hard. You could search high and low. You could search worldwide for it. But uh, if it's like you lost your glasses and they happen to be on your face, it's not going to help you to try really hard and search all over the place. So so a lot of the time it was just became about the seeking. The activity of the seeking itself was um, something that I was doing to try and um, avoid actually getting clarity about what it was that I was really looking for. And
Mhm.
so when I discovered, or I gained greater clarity about what it was that I was really looking for, and realized that in a sense, it was like the glass is on my face all along.
Uh-huh.
Then I realized that all of that seeking was not really directly useful in terms of the attainment. And so I see a lot of people doing a lot of things, or I did at least, and that was what motivated the book, to try and get it right so that they can,
Yeah.
be worthy and get the thing as if it's like, earning a gold medal or something. And so people are, they're going to do the 10-day juice fast and the 10-day Vipassana retreat, and they're going to do the intense breath work for hours a day, and they're going to do all these different things, which if you want to do them and you find benefits in those things in themselves, then that's fine. There's no problem. Have at it. But if you think that doing that is going to give you something that it may not be capable of giving you, then you might want to rethink that.
Yeah. Yeah. I like it. I like it a lot. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm relaxed, from learning more about you and especially what you said about trying too hard. I'm the glass is already on my forehead. So
Yeah.
yeah. Well, Joy, I just want to thank you for spending time with me today. As I've already said, I have benefited immensely from just talking with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Stephen. It was really quite an honor and a pleasure. You asked some great questions, and it was really delightful to speak with you.
Okay. Well, you've been listening to the Possibility Action Network podcast. Our guest today has been Joey Lott. I'm your host, Stephen Middleton. Until next time, good day.
You are not alone, just keep on.